What happened this week in the bankruptcy case in Detroit, and a report on how feasible the city's plan actually is to emerge from bankruptcy. Joining me now is bankruptcy reporter Sandra Svoboda from WDET Radio, a part of the Detroit Journalism Cooperative. Sandra, welcome to MiWeek. It's good to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's take us a little bit through the nuts and bolts this week. Explain for us, first off, the significance of the pension vote that came in.
It's a big deal. It not only gets the grand bargain money to come in for the pension funding, but it also gives the judge an indication that the pensioners are willing to support the cuts that they're going to take in this.
And this is something that we've been waiting for over the last couple of weeks, and something that Kevin Orr had been pushing and almost kind of doing a PR campaign to make sure that he got that vote.
A big PR campaign. Let's remember the ballots went out in early May. They were due back in mid-July. And a couple of weeks after they went out, we started seeing, the town hall meetings so that the pensioners could get information about what their vote meant, what the cuts meant, what they would really be facing, and how the balloting would work. So yeah, right there, the end of May, the beginning of June, we had the governor signing the bills that brought in the state money for the grand bargain. We had the big 3 auto money announced for the grand bargain. And then we were all waiting to see how the vote would be.
Can you give me an idea of what the breakdown was for the vote and really what the turnout was, I guess?
Yeah, the turnout was about half, which, as many people have pointed out, is much better than we do in many elections around here, especially primaries. But overall, of the 32,000 pensioners that received ballots, it was about 49% overall. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm kind of thinking of that because there has been so much conversation about this and how it affects people and what their lives are going to be like in the retirement. 49% maybe takes me back a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's, might be, I have not seen a breakdown on where the ballots came from. In other words, if people out of state that weren't able to get to the meetings, that weren't able to get more information, just didn't feel like they understood it well enough to vote. Or, let's face it, that was a really tough vote to stomach. You're voting for cuts for yourself, for waiving the rights to litigate the bankruptcy or the emergency manager law, cuts for your fellow retirees, or facing the uncertainty of maybe even bigger cuts. I mean, King Solomon comes to mind in many cases for this.
So tell me, what was the breakdown then for the vote? It was still an overwhelming majority.
Overall, it was about 80% passed it of those that voted.
Are there still holdouts in this situation? And what does this vote really mean for other creditors now as we're looking down the line towards the trial in August?
Right. So in bankruptcy, we have the very inelegant term of cram down, which means the judge can take the plan of adjustment and and what the city's proposing to pay creditors, and he can force it on other creditors as long as there's one class of creditors that voted favorably on the plan. So the pensioners are one of those classes. The city has also reached agreements with other classes of creditors, some of the bondholders, some holding the debt. So they have the ability to force a plan when we get to the confirmations hearings in August. But it certainly makes it easier for the judge, given that the pensioners approved their own cuts.
All right, the bottom line for all of this and going through this bankruptcy process for Detroit is so that the city can emerge and be viable and eventually start to grow. This week, a report came out essentially looking at this plan for the city of Detroit. It came out for the judge. And what did it say about this entire plan?
It said it's possible. It said it's feasible. It said this, of course, was done by the court's appointed expert, Coe Pats, who has been meeting with hundreds of people and interviewing and reviewing documents and spreadsheets. And she has a long background in accounting and restructuring. And she looked at what the city's proposing. She looked at the city structures, and she said 2 things. One, in particular, that the city really needs to think about going forward and how it restructures, right? Because we have the debt restructuring on one side, but then we have to have the ability of the city, the employees, and the systems to put that plan into place. So she said 2 things. One was that the city really needs a technology upgrade. Let's face it, without modern day accounting and the technology that backs that up, we're going to have some of the same problems before in executing the city services. And the second thing was workforce training. Let's bring the employees up to speed so that they can use that technology so they can put in best practices.
And she also really took a look at the leadership role in the city and saying, you know what, I think you've got some good people in place who will be able to execute this plan.
Yeah, she said that she was impressed with essentially she said she was impressed with the cooperation that's going on. Mayor Duggan's been in office 7.5 months now. By all accounts, cooperating with City Council. You see he and Council President Brenda Jones in joint appearances together many, many times. And by all accounts, they're moving forward under the new structure of council by districts with a new mayor, with sort of redefined powers under the emergency manager. Once they get the financial reset, then it's not a totally clean slate, but they have
No?
the ability to move forward in ways that some of the elected leaders have not in years past.
All right, so Sandra, give us an idea. What can we expect in the next month or so as court watchers and bankruptcy watchers?
Well, the one thing we know is that the trial is scheduled for to begin August 14th, a trial confirmation hearing where the judge hears from the city about the viability of the plan and then hears from creditors who are challenging it. But as we've seen with this bankruptcy, this is really uncharted territory. I mean, even the lawyers involved who have done dozens, hundreds of bankruptcy cases around the country over the years still are surprised by some of the things that happen and some of the events that come up, whether it's court filings, challenges, or we also have the outstanding Court of Appeals issues down in Cincinnati challenging both the eligibility, and one of the creditors, a bond insurer, is trying to get at the casino revenue, which is dedicated to one creditor. They would like it split among all of the creditors.
All right, a lot to watch, and we know you'll be covering it. Thanks so much for joining us on MiWeek. I appreciate it,
Christy.
Sandra.
Nice to be here.